Aging. We are going to do watercolor today, and we are going to work on a sunset, but it's going to be different than the ones we've done prior. We're going to let the paper be as important as the paint. So we're going to work with negative space today, and I am using watercolor paper, of course, and this is actually from a pad of paper, and it's just, it's a pretty cheap pad of paper. It's $4.99. It's a square. You can, of course, use a full sheet or a half sheet of whatever size you have. So if you don't want to make a square, if you have a frame that you'd like to put this in, then make it whatever size you want. All right, let's get started. I'm not even going to draw anything on the page. I really would prefer you just to paint, and we're going to make this stylized and a little abstract. So, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's not going to be any straight lines. So it's just good to dive on in and kind of play with your brush and paint. Of course, you need a small point brush, and I think that's all we're going to use today. So let's start with a sun kind of in the middle of your page. And you can just draw that. And some of these colors, you're not going to get exactly the way you want, so we need to mix. I want to add some yellow to this orange. So I'm going to put a little water in my brush and get a little yellow. I just want to warm it up in certain places, so just add some yellow. And then around the sun, we'll continue using yellow and oranges, and we just want to kind of create, it's almost, think of this like a mosaic. So we are just using some lines, some kind of curvy lines, and we're going to make the lines a pattern. So it's almost going to be like uneven stripes. We're just going to fill in the space, but I want you to leave a lot of the paper showing. I'm gonna switch to the orange just because I know that yellow is hard to see right now. So we're gonna use a little orange. And remember, if you get too dark, you can always blot. So if you want to press really hard with your brush just to see how thick you can get the lines, I know we've used the point brush quite a bit to practice, control. Well, this is the first time I'm telling you to squish your brush all the way down just to see, just to have some thick lines and some thin ones. And I want there to be some light places and some dark ones. So, use more and less water. There's no right or wrong way to do this. This is definitely more experimental and stylized. So it's not going to be super realistic. But that is good. It takes some pressure off. So this is a good one to just relax and have fun. See what happens. And I'm going to mix some of these colors. So I want to put some of the yellow on top of the orange. You want there to be various colors. And I honestly am just doing this as I go. I have no direction today. I'm just seeing what happens because I want you guys to do that. And we're going to make some water down here. So I'm going to start getting a little darker, and then I'm going to switch to blue. So at this point, I'm going to use a darker orange, almost a hint of red. Everybody has a different set, so not sure. Just figure out something a little darker. So you want to be in the red family, or an orange red would be ideal. So if you have a bright red and an orange, just go ahead and mix the two and make sure to use a lot of water. And I'm purposely not making these lines straight. So just kind of, you know, relax your hand and move your brush. And I'm not even gonna put more paint on my brush. I want this just to fade. So I'm gonna continue not putting paint. I want it to lighten up. And at this point, let's go ahead and switch to our light blue. And I'm doing light blue because I can always put dark blue on top of this if I decide I want to go darker. It's just a lot harder to take away color than it is to add. So it's better to start light, and then you can always add, decide if you want dark blue later. Which I can already tell you I want dark blue. I don't think this light blue looks that great with the red. So I'm going to go ahead and switch. And I don't want to use too much blue. I want to use water, so. Yeah, that looks prettier already. So I'm going to go add some of that blue up here. Just a little bit. So thankfully this was already kind of still wet. And I want some of these to be really thick and really, so mine are starting to all look the same, so I'm going to switch it and I'm going to make some of them thicker and some of them thinner. I don't want this to look uniform at all. And we can even go darker. So if you want to use less water and more blue, we can make the very bottom the darkest. So I'm going to redip my brush a little more to get it darker. Whereas before we were just letting the brush kind of run out on its own, like the color. So now I want to dip it more often. Okay, let's let that dry and we're going to touch it up later, but I want to go ahead and work on the top of the sky because we can always add a little more light blue and just some other colors to pull this all together. I'm going to start up, at the top, and I'm going to use some purples and pinks, and then we'll kind of go back to our oranges and reds. So it's the exact same thing we've been doing. And don't be afraid to go off the page. So if you want to start to where that some of these marks go off the page, it looks really good. So and you want to play with, you know, lots of colors, so you don't want it to all look the same. So I'm using more water, less water. I'm going to add some pinks in here in a minute to change some of it. So I'm switching to a pink. And look, I'm going to squish my brush all the way down, and then I'm going to lift it up to get some different size lines. I'm going to go back to my purple and make it a little darker. And this activity is really just to kind of get you to loosen up and think more abstract. And I know this is uncomfortable for me. Our other teacher, Lee, this is more her kind of style. And so I'm more of like a soft lines and realistic person. So I'm doing this also for myself. It's just really good to get out of your comfort zone and just let your hand do whatever, not have everything so planned out. And maybe just see what happens. And it also helps you experiment to where you don't feel like straight lines and all these perfect blends. That's not always how art should be. So I'm saying this because I know I'm the perfectionist and this is not my normal style. So it's good for all of us to branch out. Everybody has their own style. You kind of just have to experiment and figure out what it is. And then that's, you know, that'll help you with art. But I will fully admit that this is not my style. It's funny, Lee and I, you can always tell which examples are ours. Like after you guys have worked with us for so long, I bet you can look at some of our projects, and if I did a couple examples with one of her projects, you can always tell which ones are mine, which ones are hers, and it's a good thing. It's why we're a good team. So not everyone's gonna like this. You're either gonna, you know, you're not always gonna like every project, but that's why you have to do all of them, just to figure out what you really love. So I'm just continuing with the pinks and the purples. And in a minute, I might add some darks. And I'll hold this up for you so you can see what I'm doing. So let's look up close. So there's the water, and then this top of the sky. Okay, so let's just continue. And I'm going to switch to the more pinks now because I want to fade it into an orange. So find your pink, and we might start adding some pink on top of the purple, or just making it, or you could just do it underneath. And I'm using it till it kind of fades because I'm going to do some red and oranges on top of this pink soon. So I want it to be faded, and then that way we can blend a color. So I am painting until there's almost no color there. And some of this got dark, so I'm going to go over it again. So while it's still wet, you can definitely go over it again and kind of lighten it with your dry brush. And just spread the color. So I'm blending it right here too into the purple. So I moved some of the pink from over here and I moved it into the purple. All right, let's fill this in. Let's get some orange. So we're gonna get some oranges. We want the pink to get right into the orange. We're even gonna go over this pink a little bit. So to mix. And if you decide you want different size lines, feel free to change brushes. And I'm going to use some yellow right there. Since I have yellow right here, I'm just going to do a big kind of triangle of yellow. Maybe over here too. And the yellow and orange, it kind of glows, so it's really pretty. All right, now this is the point where you need to really hold your page up, look at what you've done, figure out what you do and don't like. And I'm kind of looking at my water, and I think some of those edges could be a little softer. But if you want your water to look really wavy, then you could leave it. I'm just going to clean up a few of those edges. So really pay attention, and with art, get away from it. Figure out if everything is looking good, because you really do need to take breaks. You can get so invested to where you're only looking, at one portion, and you're looking so close that you're not seeing it as the whole thing. So you need to take a step back and figure out what looks balanced, what doesn't. Remember, you want this negative space, which is your paper showing. You want it to be just as interesting as the positive space. So if there's a spot where there's too much negative space and you think it looks off balance, then you need to work on that. Like right here, I can figure out, okay, I left a lot more paper right there? And I need to look at that and think, okay, does it look good? Do I like it? Do I not like it? I actually have no problem with this part. I think there's something down here I'm going to work on. So, but everybody has their own vision. So I don't want you to do exactly what I'm doing. I want you to stop and take a step back, figure out yourself what you love and what you don't like in your picture, and then keep working on it. So I'm going to work on my water a little bit. If you guys need to work on your sun, then go ahead and do that. Your picture is not going to look like mine, I promise, especially with this kind of technique. It's going to be your own kind of thing. Everyone's is going to look different, which is great. So just take your time. We have lots of time. Each project should, I would love for it to take an hour and a half. Some people are quick, so some people might be done in an hour and 15 minutes, but we really try to aim for each project to take you an hour and a half. And so there's no rush. And if you get done in 45 minutes, then it's probably not going to look as good as it should. And remember, if there's a part that's too dark, right, like say right there, I don't actually hate that, but I'm just going to show you anyways. Just remember, if you get too dark somewhere, you can go over it with water and you can lighten it that way. And that will be just very subtle. But if you want it a lot lighter, then we're going to wet it and then take your paper towel and I want you to blot it. Okay? And that will just soften it. Soften it a little bit. So, you know, any part that's just standing out and you want it to be softer, then go ahead and blot it. And so right there, let me show you up close. I don't like that right there. Can you see it? I don't know why, but I really just don't like it. So I'm gonna just take water and I'm gonna move it. And I wanna spread. There was just a drop of paint that got on the end and it was just sticking out to me. So I'm gonna soften it. And I'm gonna do the same right here. So this is what I mean by I want you to really be, you know, patient and look at every single piece of your paper. And just figure out, okay, right there, do you like that? Or do you not like it? I don't like it, so I'm going to soften. So I'm just moving it around and I'm softening the edge to where it's going to blend. And then I'm moving it back over this way to drag the paint kind of off my page. Okay, so we'll just look up close at every part of your paper. Smooth out whatever you want, lighten whatever you'd like. If you need to add some other colors, say you want to add some dark purple down here, let's do that just to see. So I'm going to get the darkest purple, which I haven't used yet. Let's just add some dark purple right down here. If you decide you don't like it, blot it away. Let's lighten it a little bit. You can always add blue on top of it. So I'm going to go over it again with my wet brush. And maybe I'll bring it over here too. So I'll bring it over in this blue. And let's do a little bit on the bottom. Just so it looks like we meant to add that purple. I don't want there to be a purple blob and then it doesn't match and doesn't look consistent. And then of course, you know, if you want to add some water, so say that's still too harsh, then let's just go over it with water. So we can just soften it with some water. All right, I think you get the idea. I'm gonna have some pictures and directions for this lesson plan. And, of course, make it your own. If you want to add different colors, if you want different colors in the water, different colors in the sunset, feel free to adapt this technique to what you want. And, yeah, just try to really have fun and relax and see where this project takes you. See you next time.